Hi team, welcome to another episode of What's the One Thing. Based on the last episode, I'm thinking I should probably rename this to What's the 6, 7, 8 or 9 things you want to talk about in relation to this question, but it doesn't seem like such a catchy title, so let's roll with it as it is now. The question is how to get up and go when you feel blah and keep self-sabotaging. Oh man, haven't we all been there? Self-sabotage is so interesting because not only do we feel already bad about the fact that we want to be doing something that we're not doing or feel like we should be doing, in inverted commas, but then we add a whole nother layer on top of that by feeling worthless as a result of the inaction, or beating ourselves up, or feeling self-deprecating, or really buying into the voices of the itty-bitty shitty committee that can have a field day in these circumstances. The thing is, it creates such a negative loop because not only have you not taken action, but you decrease your likelihood of taking action in the future because now you feel doubly bad about it. So it can be a really tough place to get out of. Because we're only supposed to be talking about one thing in this particular episode, I'm going to talk about 2 things that I think are really pertinent and I really want you to keep in mind. The first is sometimes it's not about the hard stuff or the bad stuff. It's about you actually reaching the upper limit of your success threshold. And what that tells you is how much success can you handle? If you think about your comfort zone, and typically we know or recognize our comfort zone in terms of an image as being like a circle, you have the bottom limit of your comfort zone, which many of us are really familiar with, and perhaps that's the first area that we go to when we think about self-sabotage. All of the things that we would typically go out of our way to avoid, like painful circumstance such as injury. Emotional upset, of course, is painful as well, and that could be embarrassment or humiliation or shame. Any of those potentials which come up in our mind as something that may possibly happen will stop us taking action in that direction if they're weighted strongly enough. So obviously there is that element, but the other side of it is the upper limit or the upper threshold of our comfort zone, and that really dictates how much good stuff we can handle. Now, we'll also self-sabotage by introducing ways that stop us moving forward so that we cycle back down to what it is that we already know. An example of this, well, there's really clear examples competitively. Often I've worked with riders who have peaked at a certain level or at a certain threshold and can't move beyond that. For instance, working with a show jumper, I worked with a show jumper last year who was jumping really confidently at a metre. A metre 10 represented a whole different ball game for her mentally. It was completely within the realm of possibility for her and her horse physically. Competency-wise, it was a non-issue, but when it came to the mindset of taking that next leap up, she couldn't go there. She really found it hard to go there, and so she was developing these destructive and self-sabotaging patterns to prevent her actually gaining the experience that she needed and going to that place that she wanted to be at, to cycle her back down to what it is that she already knows. So think about self-sabotage in kind of an odd way to what you might normally have thought about it, in terms of it being a self-protective mechanism. You know, there was obviously, in relation to this example that I've just mentioned with the show jumper, there was a reason why she didn't feel comfortable jumping at a metre 10. And it wasn't the reason that you might think. Actually, for her, jumping at that level signified a real shift away from her friend group, from her peer group. And to her, she felt like she was going to be in a different place to them that made her isolated from the pack, if you like. And so she was initiating behaviours that kept her from progressing to that place competitively. So she stayed as part of the crew. She didn't want to be seen as better than them. She didn't want to be seen as, more worthy or anything like that. So, and of course, this is all fabricated by her unconscious mind, but you can see how she'll start to live out patterns and behaviours that keep her in her safe place so that she doesn't go somewhere that perhaps is unknown and unquantifiable. We really don't like the unknown, even if the unknown might actually be better than our current circumstance. And so if we're faced with possibility which is concerning to us, then naturally we will do whatever we need to do to make sure we stay where it is that we're at. The thing is that most of these situations that we fabricate in our imagination aren't actually true. But the pain-pleasure principle that we're operating to means that we go out of our way to avoid pain more than we do to gain pleasure. So if there is possibility in our mind's eye that moving forward in some way is going to cause us pain of some sort, then we need to make sure that we're really looking that squarely in the eye so we can flip things around and say, well, what is it going to cost me if I don't do that? And then we attach that painful feeling to our non-action towards the other side of the pendulum. Does that make sense? I don't feel like I was totally clear in saying that. So to recap on that particular point, what many of us are concerned about is the pain that may be caused by us following through on a certain action. And this can be unconscious. So if we have really given that more weight than perhaps is able to be attributed to the positive aspects, then naturally we will start to cycle back within what we know to keep us within our comfort zone. Now, what we want to do is turn that around and say, well, this is what it will cost me to do this action, but what is it going to cost me to not do that action? And then we flip that pleasure-pain principle on its head and attach more pain to not doing than actually to doing. The thing is though, we actually are really interested in knowing, why am I doing this? Like, it doesn't make sense. Why would I sabotage myself towards something that is actually what I want? Like, I want to be successful. I want to have this amazing partnership with my horse. I want to get out there and ride consistently. You know, whatever that looks like for you is completely valid. The sentence that I would have you complete is, I refuse to do X because. So it might be, I refuse to ride every day because if I ride every day, that means that everyone around me is going to have a higher expectation about my riding capacity and where it is I should take things. And then perhaps they're going to ask me to go to this competition in a few months' time, and I'm really not sure if that's what I want to do. A completely made up example, but you can see how even if it's not completely apparent as to why we would stop doing something in the first instance, if you start to unpeel a few layers, you can see why it actually makes perfect sense to a part of you. There's a part of you holding back, or there's a part of you self-sabotaging because it is trying to protect you from doing something it feels like will possibly be harmful for you in some way. So getting to the seed of that is really the key, because once we know what the root cause is of the self-sabotage, then we can bring it to the light of day, and you can make a decision about whether that's something you actually want to invest energy in, whether it's something that is completely ridiculous, because sometimes it is, you know, not always, but sometimes when you actually give that some airtime and realize the motivations behind the behavior, you think, well, that's crazy. What am I doing that for? And then we can start to reframe things so that you can create a whole different set of responses and decisions about how to move forward. I hope that what the 12 things, what's the 12 things that can helped then. But seriously, I do hope that helped a little bit, and that if you just answer or fill in the end of that sentence, not what's the one thing, I've forgotten what the sentence is. I refuse to do X because. I refuse to follow through on my riding every day. I refuse to consistently show up for lessons. I refuse to whatever it is for you because. And really sit with that for a while. See what comes up and have a play with it. Team, if you are listening to this stuff and thinking, that's me, then check out my membership program. Joyride is a fantastic place to be, and it has a whole host of resources to allow you to increase your emotional fitness, resilience, confidence, banish that self-doubt, overcome your fears, whatever it is in relation to mindset, mental skills and emotions. That's my bag. You can check it out on my website, confidentrider.online/joyride. And if you have any questions, flick me an email, jane@confidentrider.online, or you can PM me on any of the social media channels. Looking forward to hearing from you soon.